I mean, do you remember back in those good old days? You were just a kid, What happened if you got in trouble at school? If your childhood was worth a damn, your parents probably had a rule that went a little something like this. Like you get a call from the school and you got an ass whooping for your behavior. And then you're going to get a bigger ass whooping when you got home. Now, that might not be the most politically correct position to have. But if you were suffering under the delusion that you could act out without impunity during your daily visit to the temple of the mind, it'd cure what ailed you. Trust me, it did. I know. Now, today, the tables have completely turned, and we're watching the not-so-slow dissolution of the fundamental and largely unspoken contract which has historically existed between schools and parents. Case in point is a delightful and fashionable concept known as, wait for it, the transition closet. Okay. This literally is a closet for kids to go into so that they can change in the clothing that fits their preferred gender once they get to school. And out from under the watchful eyes of the parents who might not approve of their lifestyle choices, that's right. That's what they're doing. Now, I know I'm preaching to the converted when I say that this is evil and dangerous, but I've got to blast this crap because otherwise I'm going to just explode. My head's going to pop. Now, we went from schools calling parents to let them know their kid had gotten into trouble to schools doing everything they can to conspire with the kids to keep them out of trouble at home. Now, if you do nothing more than faintly scratch at the surface of this issue, you might draw the conclusion that this is some confused form of nobility. Teachers and administrators just want to keep kids safe, but it's not, and I'm going to tell you why. Number one, this garbage is starting in California school districts, and as we all know, California is the petri dish for just about every intellectually transmitted disease the American body politic eventually gets riddled with. Number two, the people who are advocating for and doing this are on the wrong side of the numbers game. And number three, things like this are always about subverting the dominant paradigm. And what do I mean about them being on the wrong side of a numbers game? I'm glad you asked. Let's do a little thought experiment, okay? Let's pretend for just a moment that a transition closet really is a good idea. Now, we know it isn't, but let's pretend that it is. This thing exists to protect children suffering from gender dysphoria from the physically and emotionally violent predilections of their caveman parents. Now, here's where the numbers come in. The number of so-called transgender people in the country is vanishingly small. They have a loud voice, but in reality, there aren't that many of them. Of that number, the number of transgender people who are in school is even smaller. Of that number, the number who have to hide what they're doing from their parents is some even smaller number. And I know, all God's creatures, great and small, all that. But I agree with that. But the simple fact is that you're talking about a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the overall American student body at large. And meanwhile, you just set a precedent of teaming up with students against their parents. So now precedents like that do not stop at the place where they're set. Ever. The slippery slope notion is not always a fallacy, folks, and this is a case where it's too dadgum real. Laws exist on the books which deal with parental abuse towards children. I'm not saying they're always followed perfectly, and I'm not about to suggest that there aren't those pieces of garbage parents out there, but you don't fight that by subverting the dominant paradigm of deference defaulting on the side of parents in almost all situations. Folks, I want to beat the dead horse here. Get your kids out of public schools. Look at me. Get your kids out of public schools. They're not safe. They're not good. They're not even educational in most cases. This will only get worse before it gets better. I can just about guarantee it.